Story number 1. I'm obsessed with online gaming, specifically Grand Theft Auto 5, which came out a while ago, but I only started getting into recently. I didn't care for the single-player story, I only liked playing online. Now, I should probably mention that I'm a girl. One of the reasons I love GTA 5 so much is because I don't really encounter a lot of people who actually care about the fact that I'm a girl. It doesn't matter. I've met one or two guys who ask crude questions or make sick jokes, but that's about it. I don't go around telling people that I'm a girl. However, my gamer name makes it pretty obvious that I am. I won't tell you what it is, for obvious reasons. Let's just say that it has the word princess in it. Anyway, back to the story. I've never met a creep that I can't handle, but one winter morning I had the scariest experience of my life. It had snowed during the night, and with the right amount of snowfall covering the roads and black ice making commuting dangerous, school was canceled. Instead of rushing out to play in the snow, I hopped onto my console and started up my game. Most of the day went by without a hitch, until one guy on the server happened to notice that I was a girl. I think I had just stolen some of his business's product, which is something you can do in the game, and he was pretty upset. I can't even repeat the slurs and insults that flooded the chat. I've dealt with the same thing before. It wasn't long before the insults became actual threats. He started saying things like how he would kill me and my whole family. He said he would burn my house to the ground. The threats got more violent. I did my best to ignore the guy, and I probably should have just kept doing that. When he said he was going to burn my house to the ground, I got a little too confident. I responded, "How? You don't even know where I live." He went quiet after that, and I felt pretty good about myself for a full 5 seconds. After that, I saw something appear in the chat that scared the hell out of me. My skin turned pale and goosebumps covered my skin. The guy went quiet for only a moment, and when he came back, he typed my address into the chat. He knew where I lived. I'm still not sure how he found out what my address was. My fight or flight response kicked in and I shut off the console. Not only that, I pulled the plug completely. I contacted the game's support. I was told that the guy got banned and that was the end of it. Thankfully, no one ever showed up to the house and nothing came of that creep's threats. I still play GTA 5 online, but I rarely ever speak in the chat. You never know who you're talking to or what they're capable of. Story number 2. I usually don't like talking in online games. I'm kind of an introvert, and while I like playing online games with other people, I'm really shy and I very rarely actually talk to them. This is difficult because I play a lot of shooters which require you to communicate with your teammates. I still have game chat on though, so I can hear my teammates make callouts, but my microphone is on push to talk. That way they can't hear me. I managed to get away with using the game's pinging system to communicate. My main game at the time of this story was Fortnite. I know what you're going to say. Not too long ago, I got loaded into a squad. 2 of the guys sounded around my age, which was mid-teens, but the third one sounded like a really young kid. He was really loud and obnoxious, but I found it kind of adorable. He seemed really impressed by my skill and was constantly complimenting me. I won't lie, I loved it. Anyway, we were doing pretty well, but we ultimately lost the game. Now, usually I'd just load into the next random squad. However, the kid sent me a friend request and I did really enjoy playing with him, so I accepted and went on to play several more games with him. He was very talkative and didn't really mind that I wasn't. It was the best time I'd had on the game in a while. About 6 games in, I heard a strange sound through his microphone. It was like a loud, sudden bang followed by the kid's gasp. Then, there was silence. I had no idea what was happening, but his character in the game had stopped moving in the middle of nowhere and he had gone silent for the first time since we started playing. I was already worried that something bad had happened. I built around him in the game and just chilled for a bit, thinking that he'd just gone AFK for a bit. He did come back, but he sounded really different. He was crying and I could barely understand what he was saying. I knew that he was in trouble and he was asking for my help. This was the first time I'd ever thought about using my microphone, but I had no other choice. I started asking him questions and eventually learned that his dad was drunk, which sounded like a common occurrence, but he said his dad was really angry. It was so horrifying hearing this little kid explain, in tears, how terrified he was of his own father. I went on to tell the kid to lock his door and be really quiet. When I told him to call the cops, he said his mom told him he was too young for a phone. I was playing on European servers and he sounded British. I happened to live in Russia at the time. I asked him to tell me his address while I dialed the British police myself. I kept talking to him, comforting him, while explaining the situation to the police. It was the most terrifying experience I'd ever been through, so I can't even imagine how that poor little kid was feeling. I'll cut the story short. The police did get to his house in time. The kid didn't come online for a while after that, and I was a little worried. One day I saw him online and instantly loaded into the game. It was such a relief to hear that he was okay and that he and his mom were living in a new house, far away from his father. We still play Fortnite every now and again. Even as we both move on to other games and life gets busy, we still manage to log on and enjoy a few games together. He's the only person that I talk to in online games, and I'm really grateful to have him in my life. Story number 3. I've been into gaming since I was a little kid. It started as early as Mario on the Nintendo. Once I got older, it wasn't long until I got into PC gaming and Steam. Back then, there weren't a lot of high-end games like there is today. Still, my computer could barely run games like Half-Life, and there was no hope in me being able to play something like Crysis. Due to this, my main games were Team Fortress 2 and almost all the Quakes. Now, Quake was cool, but there's something different about playing an online game. I don't think the online version of Quake was out yet, or I just didn't care about it. So I mostly played TF2 for that social interaction. TF2 isn't exactly known for its community. There are a lot of jerks, weirdos, and creeps playing that game. Basically, ignoring the in-game chat box was the easiest way to actually enjoy the game. This one match I played is burned into my mind, and I haven't touched the game since. We had a pretty good heavy on our team, so I was playing medic to keep him alive and boost his damage. I basically thought this was the best way to win the game. Some guy was playing pyro, and he would get pretty upset with me whenever he died. Now, I don't know how much you might know about the game, but medic is basically the only character that can heal other people on the team. There are health packs scattered around the map, and you can always go back to the base to heal. I was focusing on healing the heavy, but I wasn't neglecting the other players. The pyro kept rushing forward into the entire enemy team and was expecting me to follow and keep him alive, which I obviously wasn't going to do. It made me angry whenever he blamed me for his death or insulted my skills at the game. I did my best to ignore him and play the game. We ended up winning and I felt good about it. Unfortunately, the story doesn't end there. When I logged off, I noticed I had a new friend request on Steam. It was the same pyro that was insulting me in-game. Now, I usually don't do this, but I was curious as to what he was going to say, so I accepted. At first, he did exactly what I expected. The chat box was instantly filled with all kinds of insults and threats. I wasn't bothered, but I didn't know what was happening in the background. I knew about viruses and that, but I always thought you had to click a link or something for that to happen. Turns out, all I had to do was accept his friend request. I went to close the chat, but my mouse wasn't working. Then, the cursor started moving all by itself. I watched in disbelief as the cursor on screen opened the browser and someone started typing something in. I didn't touch my keyboard or my mouse. The pyro had taken control of my computer somehow. Obviously, I didn't let it go any farther than that. I turned off my computer by holding the power button in, and that was it. I didn't get to see what the guy was going to search with my browser, and I really am not interested. My curiosity has limits. That incident kind of put me off TF2 completely. I still play other games, but I've never gone back to that one. Story number 4. For mine and my sister's safety, I won't be giving too many details in this story. I won't tell you the game I was playing or the gamer tag of the creep that might have ruined online gaming for me completely. At the time, we were sharing an apartment because neither of us could afford to live alone, and we were both too prideful to go back to living with our parents. We got along well, so it worked for us. When it came to gaming, we had completely different tastes, but there was this one online game that we both enjoyed. I don't want to risk giving too much away about the game, but I will say that you could eat food for health. We were in a squad with 2 other people we didn't know. One of them was pretty chatty, but the second guy didn't really say anything. After a while, my sister started joking about how the food in the game looked so good that it was making her hungry. She went on to say how she was craving pizza. That was normal for her, since she loved pizza. I agreed, and the other guy had a laugh about it. The fourth guy stayed quiet. Later into the night, we were still playing with the same squad. Then, in the middle of the match, we heard the doorbell ringing. We weren't expecting anyone, so we ignored it. I guess the guy heard the doorbell over the microphone because, after being silent the whole night, he suddenly spoke up. All he said was, "Aren't you going to answer that?" My sister and I shared a look, but we didn't really have a reason to suspect the guy of anything. Boy, were we wrong. I did answer the door, and you won't believe me, but it was a delivery guy with a pizza. I argued with him for a few minutes about how we didn't order anything and that I wasn't going to pay for it, but he insisted that it was paid for already. I did what any reasonable person would do and took the pizza. My sister didn't complain. We carried on playing while we ate, and that's when the silent guy spoke up again. This time, when we heard his voice, it sent shivers up and down our spines. He said, "How's the pizza?" We had turned our microphones off so they didn't have to hear us eating. I know he heard the doorbell ring, but he couldn't have possibly known that it was a pizza delivery guy at the door. Obviously, we both freaked out. After a short debate, we both left the game without saying anything. We didn't even finish the pizza. I felt sick to my stomach that whole night, and I even thought about calling the police, but what would they have done? We were on edge for a whole month after that, double-checking that the doors were locked and looking over our shoulders. There's no doubt in my mind that the silent guy had sent a pizza to our house. I don't know why, and I don't know how he knew where we lived. It's the not knowing that scares me the most. Story number 5. Escape from Tarkov isn't really a new game, but it's not old either. It's really expensive, which also makes it kind of exclusive. I guess that was initially why I was attracted to the game. There are a lot of gamers out there, so I wanted to feel special. After I bought the game, it was a hard ride. The game is extremely difficult, to the point of losing everything you have when your character dies and having to start the next game with nothing. The worst part is that it's online, so you could lose one game and load into the next with nothing, but someone else has a lot of really good gear. Anyway, I was determined to get good at it, and I eventually did. I was winning more than I was losing. I became one of those players with really good gear against people with nothing. The game became really rewarding for some time, and I never had any problems. I guess that's why what happened to me is still so frightening to this day. I got home after a long day at work, and I just wanted to play for a bit before heading to bed. I've never experienced hackers in the game or anything until that night. While I was playing, my game started glitching. My screen flickered, the sound cut out, and my character started doing all the things by himself. They were jumping up and down, spinning round in circles, and then firing up into the air until there was no more ammo in the gun. Now, at first I was worried because I'd gotten so much gear, and if someone heard the gunshots and killed me, I would lose all of it. I couldn't Alt F4 the game either. I just sat there and stared as the game went crazy. Then, something even weirder happened. The game doesn't have an in-game chat box, but one popped up at the bottom of my screen. And this is when I started shaking. The chat box filled in seconds with the same word, written over and over again. Die, 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 die. All in capital letters. It filled my screen in seconds and it didn't stop. I couldn't understand it, and it was starting to freak me out. I didn't care about my gear in the game anymore. I held in Alt F4 to shut down the game. That didn't work. Then my character just died, just like that. No one shot me. Nothing in the game happened that would cause my character to die, but they did. Then one final message popped into the game chat, and it still sends shivers down my spine when I think about it. The last message was, "You're next." The screen went black and my computer shut down after that. That happened a few months ago and I haven't opened the game since. I don't know what to do. I'm so scared.